We moved into my grandparents' house in 2016 when they decided to downsize. I was 9 then. They had built the place in the early 90s, and it sits on 5 acres out on the outskirts of a small southern town. Woods and open fields stretch around it, and a slow, muddy river winds past our southern fence line. On 2 sides, our property touches the only neighbor's land, an odd crooked patch with a house that always felt like it was sinking into the earth. That neighbor's house was old. The original farmhouse dated back to the 1920s, and over the decades it had been patched together like a quilt stitched by a drunk. Rooms didn't line up. Windows were sealed with plastic wrap instead of glass, and the siding seemed to weep moisture even on the hottest days. The yard was a wild tangle of thorny bushes and skeletal trees, old garden gnomes missing eyes or heads, and bits of plastic and rusted metal peeking through the overgrown grass like broken teeth. Back then, that house belonged to 2 elderly sisters, Violet and Agnes, and 3 kids. Violet rarely moved from her faded green rocking chair on the porch, a silent sentinel watching the woods. Agnes was meaner, sharper, forever hobbling around the yard with a switch in her hand, yelling at the children or the stray cats that skulked under their porch. Their grandkids were Liam, who was my age, and his younger twin sisters, Allison and Kelsey. I was forced to be around Liam because we shared a class and my parents thought it was neighborly to be friends. But Liam was ... wrong. There was always something in his eyes, a kind of flicker that made my skin crawl when I caught him staring. He had this habit of appearing behind me when I least expected it, like I'd be playing a game in my room, headphones on, and turn around to find him standing in the doorway, grinning like he'd been waiting for me to notice. One afternoon I was riding my bike up and down our gravel driveway when I saw Liam crouched by our pool. He didn't see me at first. He was talking to himself, muttering in that weird sing-song voice he used when nobody was around. Then he slipped his hand into the water and dropped something. I coasted closer and saw what it was. A dead bird, stiff and half featherless. He looked up at me then, his grin wide, his teeth clenched too tight. I didn't speak. I just turned my bike and pedaled back to the house as fast as I could. I told my parents, but they brushed it off as boys being weird. Boys being weird didn't explain the garden shears incident though. Liam chased me around the backyard once, giggling, while snapping those rusted blades inches from my arms. I tripped and fell, scraping my knees raw on the gravel. He just stood over me, breathing hard, the shears still in his fist. He tilted his head and whispered, "You have to hold still if you want it to be quick." After that, I avoided him. He'd still show up though. Once, I woke up in the middle of the night because my bedroom window rattled. I peered out and nearly screamed. Liam's pale face stared back at me from the other side of the glass, lit by the weak moonlight. He lifted his hand and pressed it flat against the pane, smearing it with something dark that I later found out was rabbit blood. Teresa, the kid's mother, was the strangest of them all. She looked out of place in that collapsing house, clean clothes, perfect hair, and a constant, unsettling smile. Once she caught me playing near the fence line and called me over. She told me I had a third eye, and that only special people could see the truth hidden under the skin of the world. Her breath smelled sweet, like old roses left to rot. She invited me into the house once. I was too polite to say no. Inside, the smell hit me like a wall. Rotten food, mold, urine. Trash was piled knee-deep in the hallway, and a dead raccoon lay bloated under a broken window. Teresa didn't seem to notice. She led me upstairs to a room, which looked like a museum. Pink floral wallpaper, porcelain dolls with cracked faces, a huge vanity covered in jars of herbs and candles. She sat me on a stool and showed me a black candle and a leather book with a pentagram burned into the cover. I lied and said my mom called me home. I bolted out that door so fast I nearly tripped down the stairs. Things escalated over the years. One morning, my dad found dead chickens scattered across our backyard. Their necks twisted the wrong way, feathers plucked out and arranged in a circle around our porch. Another time, my sister came in crying because she'd seen Liam and the twins standing in the woods, completely naked, holding hands and chanting something she couldn't understand. In 2019, Agnes died. She collapsed in front of the kids' eyes, open mouth stretched in a silent scream. The funeral was grim except for one woman I didn't recognize who wept like she'd lost her own child. No one consoled her. That same year, Liam tried to drown one of his sisters in their bathtub. He was sent away to some psychiatric hospital in another county. I overheard my parents whisper that the doctors claimed he spoke in voices that weren't his own. Teresa vanished soon after. She left the twins with Violet, who was too old and frail to even stand on her own for long. The authorities came when neighbors reported screaming. They found the girls locked in a room upstairs, malnourished and half feral. They were taken away. Violet died not long after, alone in that house. Mrs. S., my old teacher, bought the place at auction. She tore down most of it but kept the oldest part, Teresa's wing, because of historical value. She invited my family to see the renovations. Everyone marveled at the bright walls and new floors, but I felt it the second I stepped upstairs, a heavy choking presence that settled on my shoulders like wet burlap. I knew deep down that whatever Teresa had summoned or left behind was still there, scratching at the edges of the paint, waiting Years later, Mrs. S asked me to dox it. On the last night, Muffin and Henry, her spoiled little dogs, cornered the staircase, barking at something I couldn't see. Then the thumping began. Heavy footsteps on the landing above, slow and deliberate. I fled and locked the door behind me. I swear I heard the thud of something throwing itself against it as I ran down the driveway. Now in 2025, the rumors say Teresa runs some fringe religious cult out of a mobile park deep in the woods. Flyers appear in gas stations and grocery store corkboards. The truth seer comes see the eye open. I tear them down when I find them. I see her sometimes in dreams. Mostly. She stands at the foot of my bed with Liam, both of them silent, their mouths open but no words coming out. Just the soft sound of wind hissing through dead leaves. When I drive past that house, which Mrs. S still calls her forever home, I swear I see shadows moving behind the upstairs windows, long thin arms reaching out as if they want to pull me back inside. I pray the paint holds, that the carpet stays thick enough to smother the old markings burned into the floor. But deep down, I know, you can't bury a curse under drywall. The land remembers and it's patient. When I first met Clayton, he didn't seem like someone who would end up being the shadow that haunted the edges of my life. Back then, he was just the quiet, slightly awkward kid who liked basketball and sneakers. He lived a block away from my apartment, so it was easy for us to become friends. We'd shoot hoops at the community center, sit on the bleachers eating greasy pizza, and talk about nothing for hours. My dad liked him too. He said Clayton seemed polite, called him a good influence. I used to believe that, but I should have seen it coming how quickly loneliness can twist a person. It was the start of freshman year when we really got close. I didn't have a car, so after practice Clayton's mom would pick us both up. Sometimes she'd bring us soda and fries, and we'd sit in the back seat laughing about the older guys who dunked on us at the gym back then. His clinginess seemed harmless, almost flattering. He'd ask if I could hang out the next day, and the next, and the next. If I said I had homework, he'd offer to come over and help, but he never really did. He just wanted to be near me. I brushed it off. I thought, he's lonely. Maybe his home life sucks. I didn't know how right I was. By sophomore year, I started drifting. I was busy, new friends, a new crush, more practice. Clayton didn't handle it well. If I didn't answer my phone, he'd spam my messages. If I didn't text back within minutes, I'd get missed calls, then voice messages. Hey, are you mad? Did I do something wrong? Can I come over? Sometimes it would be dozens of messages in a single hour. He once showed up at my door at midnight because I hadn't replied for an evening. I was half asleep, and when I cracked the door open, he just stood there, staring. That faint shimmer of sweat on his forehead, despite the cold. Why didn't you answer? He asked, not angry, not sad, just blank. I lied, said I'd fallen asleep early. He nodded slowly, didn't say anything, then just walked away. I locked the door after him and sat awake for hours, wondering if he was standing out there in the dark. Around this time, I found out from my friend Nick that Clayton had a girlfriend. Or rather, had one. Nick told me what happened in pieces. He said Clayton started showing up at her place unannounced too, just like with me. We said he'd wait outside her window if she didn't answer his calls. He'd sit at the bus stop near her house from dusk until the streetlights flicked on, watching her front porch. One night, according to Nick's whispered version, Clayton forced his way in while her parents were out. He grabbed a kitchen knife, pressed it to her throat when she screamed. The part that makes my stomach twist is that nobody pressed charges. Her parents didn't want the attention, didn't want their daughter's name in the paper next to attempted assault. They moved away a month later, and me. I should have cut him off the second I heard that story. But I didn't. I thought he wouldn't do that to me. He's my friend. I was living alone at my small, rundown apartment by then. My parents had moved to another town for my dad's new job. I stayed behind for school and work. It felt like freedom, a chance to breathe. One evening, I lied again. He'd texted, "Can I come over? Got some new shoes to show you," I said. I was cleaning and tired. He left me on read for hours. I assumed he was sulking. Around 11 p.m. I heard the knock. At first I thought it was the neighbors. They sometimes came by if I parked my car too close to their side of the lot. But when I peeked through the peephole, no one was there. I cracked the door open a few inches, heart tapping a nervous beat. The hallway was empty, just that dim yellow light and the old elevator humming down the hall. I stepped back inside and double-locked the deadbolt. I told myself, it's nothing, just a prank, go to bed. But as I passed my living room window, I froze. Outside, standing under the flickering security light by the lot, was Clayton. His hoodie was pulled up, shadowing his eyes. His arms hung at his sides, and for a second I convinced myself he was just standing there. Until he raised one hand, lifted something shiny into the light. A knife. I ducked behind the curtain, heart smashing into my ribs like it wanted out. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, but my hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. When the dispatcher answered, I could barely speak. I crawled to my bedroom closet and locked myself in, whispering into the phone, "He's outside. He Has a knife, please. I don't know what he wants. Through the slats of the closet door, I could see my bedroom window. I swear I saw his shadow on the glass. He was tapping it lightly with the tip of the blade. Tap tapped like he was playing a song only he could hear. The police pounded on my door 15 minutes later. By then Clayton was gone, vanished into the night like smoke. I gave the cops everything. Screenshots of his messages, Nick's account about the ex-girlfriend, descriptions of how he'd stalked me. They promised to keep an eye out. For weeks I barely slept. Every creak in the pipes, every gust of wind rattling my windows made me jump out of bed. I got pepper spray, I got new locks. I considered moving but couldn't afford it. I never heard from him again. But I keep wondering, did he mean to scare me? Or did I get lucky that he ran before the police arrived? Sometimes I dream about him. In the dream, I'm back in that closet, phone pressed to my ear, breathing so hard it hurts. I hear footsteps in my living room. I hear him whisper my name, so softly I almost don't believe it's real. When I wake up, my phone is always in my hand like I'm ready to dial 911 all over again. I never see him in town. Nick says he moved away, maybe ended up in jail for something else. But part of me hopes he didn't, because if he's free, he's still out there, maybe watching, maybe waiting for another knock at my door that I'll be too stupid to answer. And I know deep in my bones that if I do ... he won't run next time. I still can't watch horror movies in theaters anymore. Not after what happened that night, the night that turned my idea of a creepy stranger into something that still makes my skin crawl. Years later, it started simple enough, a dating app match. Her name was Emily, pretty, smart, a little shy in her photos. We bonded over horror films. She said she loved movies that got under your skin, not just jump scares. I liked that. We messaged for about 2 weeks. She lived on the other side of town, so we figured a late movie halfway between us would be perfect. No parents to bug us. No annoying high school kids throwing popcorn. Just me, her, and a dark room to maybe hold hands in. It was a Thursday night. I remember because I had a big math test the next morning. But who cares about tests when you're 17 and think you might kiss a girl for the first time in forever? I borrowed my dad's old Honda Civic, cleaned it inside and out, picked up Emily around 9:30. She stepped outside in a long gray coat and a red scarf. I still remember how she laughed when I opened the passenger door like a dorky gentleman. She smelled like vanilla and peppermint gum. I was instantly head over heels. The theater we chose was an old rundown place that should have been turned into a supermarket years ago. It sat behind a strip mall that closed at 9, so the lot was always half-lit, cracked, and empty by 10. When we pulled in, the only other cars were an old station wagon and a rusty red truck parked way at the far end. It was cold enough that my breath fogged the windshield when I shut off the heater. Inside, the lobby was stale, that old popcorn smell mixed with something damp, like a basement carpet after a flood. One kid worked the counter, stringy hair, pimples, and bored eyes. He didn't even look up when I asked if anyone else had tickets for our show. "Just you two," he mumbled, handing over our cokes and gummy worms. Theater 6 down the hall, on the left. It was exactly what I wanted. Just us, empty theater, huge screen. She shivered when we stepped in. It was freezing. I handed her my hoodie, feeling smooth as hell when her fingers brushed mine. We picked the best seats, dead center, 4 rows from the back, middle of the row. I remember every detail, the sticky floor, the flicker of the green exit sign behind us, how her hair brushed my shoulder when she leaned close to whisper. When the trailers ended and the lights dimmed even lower, I thought, this might be the best date I've ever had. I was so stupid. Right as the movie's title screen faded in, that first big scare about to happen, the theater door creaked open. It was just a faint sound under the rumble of the surround speakers, but I heard it. I thought, must be an employee checking the room. Then footsteps, slow, scraping the sticky steps. They didn't stop halfway down like normal people looking for a seat in the dark. They climbed all the way up, each step deliberate, like they had nowhere else to be for eternity. Emily shifted next to me, and I felt her tense. She leaned closer, warm breath on my ear. "Why is he coming up here?" I didn't have an answer. He sat directly behind us, so close that if I tilted my head back, I could have touched his knees. The theater had over 100 empty seats, but he picked that one close enough that I could smell something stale and sour, like old cigarettes and sweat. I forced myself to watch the screen, but every couple of minutes I felt him, how you feel eyes boring into the back of your head. That weight behind you, as if someone's leaning forward, lips inches from your neck. I told myself it was just my imagination. He probably just liked sitting in the back. Maybe he was homeless and needed a warm place. Maybe he really liked this movie and didn't want distractions up front. But when I stole a glance over my shoulder, my guts dropped to my feet. He wasn't watching the movie. He was watching us. Pale, middle-aged, thin hair. His eyes were wide and glassy, the way a deer's eyes catch headlights, but dead inside. No blinking, no shift when the screen flickered. Just locked on me. Emily grabbed my hand under the armrest. Her palm was clammy. Halfway through the movie, The tension in my neck was so tight I thought I'd get a migraine. Then it got worse. I felt it, a whisper of hot air brushing my collar. Slow, deliberate, a deep inhale, then a long exhale right into my hair. I flinched so hard I nearly knocked over my soda. Emily jerked away, eyes wide. I twisted in my seat and hissed, "Dude, what the hell?" He didn't answer, didn't flinch, didn't blink, just leaned back, eyes locked on my face, lips curled into the faintest, nastiest little grin. Emily mouthed, "We need to move." We grabbed our stuff and scooted to the front corner row, the worst seats in the house. My skin crawled with every step, certain he'd follow immediately. He didn't. He stayed in our old seats, but I could feel him back there, shadowy in the flicker of the screen. I couldn't pay attention to the movie anymore. Neither could Emily. Every so often I'd peek back, see his silhouette still staring down at us, unmoving. At one point, I thought I saw him stand up just for a second like he was going to follow. I nearly ran right there. Finally, I leaned to Emily and whispered, "We're leaving." She nodded fast. We bolted down the steps, pushing through the exit door into the empty hall. My chest felt ready to burst from how hard my heart pounded. We hurried to the lobby, nearly crashing into the sane bored kid at the counter. I blurted out, "There's a guy in there behind us. He's watching us. He's breathing on us. It's freaking creepy as hell." The kid's eyes went wide for a second, then darted away. Again, he muttered again. "What do you mean?" Again, Emily demanded. He shifted uncomfortably. "He shows up sometimes, late shows. Doesn't buy a ticket. Management says we can't do anything unless he touches someone or tries to sneak behind the counter." Emily looked like she was about to cry. I swear, in that moment, if I'd had a bat, I'd have gone back in and broken that freak's nose instead. The kid called a janitor, an older guy with missing teeth, who walked us to my car. I didn't see him in the lot. Didn't see him behind us when I pulled out, but every stop sign, every red light, I half expected to see headlights pull up behind me and that pale, dead-eyed face behind the wheel. I dropped Emily off at her dorm. She hugged me quick and desperate, then ran inside without looking back. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, engine idling, half expecting to see that guy standing under a streetlight smiling. Emily and I texted for a week after that, but we never went out again. We tried, but any time one of us mentioned a movie or a late night, it killed the vibe instantly. I never went back to that theater. I checked the reviews online for months afterward. Nothing. No police reports. No big headlines about a local pervert. It's like he just drifted through, like a ghost wearing a man's skin, and found another pair of victims to watch next time. It's been years. I'm older. I live in a better town. But sometimes, when the house creaks at 3 a.m., my brain takes me right back to that icy, sticky floor and the smell of stale breath on my neck. Sometimes I dream he's still behind me, inches away, waiting for me to notice, so he can lean in closer, 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 and never blink. I don't watch movies alone anymore. Not in a dark theater. Not in my bedroom with the lights off. Some nights I even check behind the couch before I sit down, just in case he found me again.